Let's start with the front runner in the polls. That's City Council Speaker Christine Quinn. David, her strengths and her weaknesses.
Well, her strengths are she has been running the council for a number of years, getting budgets passed on time, reaching consensus on a lot of divisive issues. And of course, that's one of her weaknesses as well, in that there are these divisive issues out there. And right now, the one at the forefront is paid sick leave. Either way she goes, she's going to offend one constituency. Another strength and weakness, to some extent, is her close relationship with Mayor Bloomberg, which is a strength. He's still pretty popular here. And it's a weakness in a sense that Democratic primary voters who tend to lean left view him less favorably than the Republicans and independents who will be voting in November, but not in September 2013.
New York has never had, believe this or not, as you well know, David Seifman, a woman mayor, and as a matter of fact, an openly gay mayor. Is the city ready for Christine Quinn?
Right. Well, you know, they've done polls. All polls show that being a female candidate gives you an edge. There are more women voters. I think New York City is ready for first openly gay mayor. There's no sign that it isn't. Those things are going to be factored in by the electorate. There are going to be a lot of other issues as well that have come into play. So I don't see those as overwhelming in either direction.
Okay, let's switch to City Council, former City Controller Bill Thompson. He did very well against Bloomberg the last time around, David Seifman.
He certainly did. He came within 4.5 points of winning, which certainly makes him a contender this time. He remains, for the moment, the only African-American candidate in the field, which gives him a sizable leg up. Remember, this is going to be a 5-4, 6-way primary, so if no one gets 40% of the vote, the first and second finishers will compete in a runoff. Most people think that Bill Thompson will run either first or second.
Let's switch to City Controller John Liu. Just last month, surprisingly, David, Liu pulled in nearly $600,000 in the past 6 months for his campaign, possible campaign for mayor.
Well, in some ways, Liu is one of the most interesting mayoral candidates we've ever had. I mean, his campaign is under investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office, and he's still pulling in respectable campaign contributions. And he says he's running no matter what. This can make for a very odd mayoral campaign where you have one of the major candidates' campaign being scrutinized by the feds while he's running. And more interesting is that Liu has a certain appeal to black voters, or at least black groups and black leaders. And if he's in the race, he's going to pull some of those black votes away from Bill Thompson. Might not be a large number, but even a small number could do real damage to Thompson.
There's also public advocate Bill de Blasio, Manhattan Borough President Scott Stringer. Do you see either one of those as a serious contender?
Well, I do. I mean, you're a serious contender when you're 13 months from the election, no matter where you are in the polls. If you're been in the public spotlight as long as they have. De Blasio is starting to move towards the middle. He's kind of been the darling of the left for the last several years, and he's a smart guy, an intelligent guy, and you know, there's good reason to think he could be in the mix. I think Scott Stringer has a harder challenge in that he's basically known mostly in Manhattan and would have to do a lot to become better known throughout the city. And he's running, almost last in the polls.
Let me ask you this, as I only have about a minute left for this segment. David Seifman, Bureau Chief, City Hall Bureau Chief of the New York Post. Remarkably, Democrats have not held City Hall, as you know, in New York City for 20 years. 8 years of Giuliani, 12 of Bloomberg. Do you see a strong candidate on the Republican side? We've heard, for example, the name of State Senator Malcolm Smith, an African-American, floated on the Republican side. Have you heard any unknown names as of this point?
Well, to put it bluntly, no. The fact that Malcolm Smith has gotten the attention of the Republican leaders tells me that they're pretty desperate to find a candidate. And unless Ray Kelly, the police commissioner, decides to jump into this race, there's no obvious Republican candidate out there who I think could take on the eventual Democratic nominee. There's still a little time left for someone to jump in, but the door is closing pretty quickly, and we don't see anyone emerging.
I close this way, David. It's amazing. He started as a political novice, but ended up serving 3 terms as mayor of New York. You know better than anyone, so this is why we're asking you this question. How will history look back and judge Mayor Michael Bloomberg?
Well, it's always dangerous to try to predict what history is going to do, but all the polls show that he's generally regarded as a better than average mayor right now. And he obviously has some faults, and there's obviously been some pretty strong pushback against his 3rd term. But nevertheless, what I found amazing is the most recent poll, where a very large majority of voters were upset about the 3rd term, still gave him an approval rating in the plus column. So that tells me they're putting aside their personal feelings about what he did to get the 3rd term and viewing his policies and his governing style as positive.
David Seifman, Bureau Chief of the New York Post, City Hall Bureau Chief, also Dean of the New York Press Corps. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
You're welcome.